Hi there, very good day to everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. Today's topic is the employment legislation. Now, let me explain the word legislation first. Legislation means the law, the statute, the act made by the parliament of a country. Usually, laws come from parliament. As we know, parliament has the supreme power. They are the authority to make laws, to cancel existing laws, to alter existing laws, to improve existing laws, to repeal the laws. They have the right. They are the supreme power of any country. However, they are not only the parties to make laws, there are other parties as well. One of them would be judges in courts. When they decide cases, they make laws sometimes. However, the supreme lawmaking authority is the parliament. Parliament can uh, overrule or cancel the laws that made by the judges as they decide cases. Right. So legislation means law. Now, we would have heard of contracts. Contracts happens if you buy a property, if you sell a vehicle, if you buy some burger from a burger shop, whatever you do, you enter into a contract. What is that contract? You pay the money and you get some stuffs back. Let's say you buy a car, it's a purchasing contract. You pay the money, they give you the car. That's the contract. You buy a land, you have a contract with the landlord. If you buy it, so you become the buyer, he is a seller. Otherwise, if you rent a property, you may be the client or the tenant, in fact, and the landlord. You have a tenancy agreement, tenancy contracts. Okay, these are all contracts. These type of contracts are regulated by contract law. There is law, there are laws, different laws, law of tort, criminal law, contract law, admiralty law, medical law. There are different laws that regulates different areas, insurance related laws. There are laws. Uh, Contracts like this, buying, selling, those kind of things are regulated by contract law. If you work for an organization as an employee, you enter into an employment contract. That contract is regulated by employment law, employment legislation. There are laws that regulates those kind of that contract, employment contract, because it is a special contract that you enter into. The law wants to protect the weaker party. In this case, employees are weaker than the employers, so they want to protect the weaker party so that they have made laws to protect employment law. So that is the meaning of legislation. Law means when you enter into contract with an organization to work for, they have to give you some protection. You may lose your job suddenly and you need some protection for it. The employer may sack you, may fire you, so you need some protection. The employer may make you redundant. He says, I have no job for you, can you please go home? And the law has to look after you, because if they suddenly tell you no job, where do you go? You have your family, you have your rented property, you have your kids, you have your medical expenses, and then company says no job for you from today onwards. That's difficult. So law has given some protection for employees. Okay, so the law that regulates these kind of things is what we call employment legislation. Okay, right. Now, the legislation made by the parliament that is specially regulating this. So that is the employment legislation. The next part is about the enforcement authority. You have to know this as well. Example, when the law is made by the parliament makes the law, and everyone in the country is subject to that law. Nobody is above the law. Everybody is subject to law. So you got to obey the law. If you go breaching it, if you are not in compliance with that law, there may be legal action against you. Now, who takes the legal action is the department, or the authority is what we call the law enforcement authority or regulatory body. For example, if Parliament makes a law to regulate the road usage, They make laws. If you want to ride a car or drive a car, you have to have license, you have to have the MOT, you have to have the insurance, you have to have the what is it, the road tax and so on. So you need to have all of these. These are all legal requirements. Now, if you don't obey this, if you are in breach of it, if you transgress this, who involves in to take legal action, which is the road policing department, the police. So the police is the enforcement authority. They are the regulatory department, regulatory body. They regulate these kind of things. Okay, so police is the enforcement authority of this to regulate the road users. The law is made by the parliament. Police is a regulatory body. And on the other side, another example, we have laws, wildlife laws that regulates the security of the wild, the animals, and so on. So when you have these kind of things, we need to have laws, and laws are there to protect the protected animals, elephants, and so on. Recently in Sri Lanka, there were 6 elephants. They were killed in a railway road accident or railway track accident, and how to protect those kind of things. So there are laws. So this law is made by the parliament again. Who is regulating it? Otherwise, who is enforcing it? The regulatory body is the wildlife authority, maybe. Okay, so this is the enforcement authority. So what is law? We know. Who is the law enforcement authority of that? Every law has enforcement authority in connection to that, right? So that is the idea. Right, having said that, let's go and see the laws that regulates employee employment relationship, employee employment contracts. Okay, there are so many laws. I'm not going to discuss everything. If you need those in detail, I'm very happy to discuss those things, but that is not necessary for your assignment. We are not learning law here. We want to specialize in employment law. Of course, yes, we can do some extra session on it, but however, we'll complete the HR subject here because law, that's my first degree anyway, law. I have done some good learning on employment law. Right, now, let's see this, the laws that regulates the employment contract in the UK. In different countries, we have different laws. In different countries, we have laws that may be similar, but the name may differ as well. Here, the first one I'm trying to discuss here is this Employment Rights Act, Employment Relations Act, Equal Pay Act, Data Protection Act. Okay, if you look at this Employment Rights Act 1996, this means the act's name is Employment Rights Act. That's the law, that's the legislation that was enacted in 1996. So this law applies from 1996. Before that, this law was not existing. So no. All right. So there are 4 laws here. Other one is National Minimum Wages Act, Race Relations Act, Sex Discrimination Act, Disability Discrimination Act, Employment Equality, Religion or Belief Regulations 2007, I think. Employment Equality Regulations 2006. Employment Equality Sexual Orientation Regulations 2003. There are so many laws. I have brought in about 11 to explain some of it, and I'm not going to explain everything in detail. I'm going to do certain things in here that is a little bit of importance. Right, now let's have a look at this Employment Rights Act 1996. Before I kick off this one, let me add some points to the validity of your employment or the value of being an employee. Earlier days, people used to work for bosses, where we called that relationship at that time, long time ago, before we developed all these laws, we used to call this the master-servant relationship. Boss is the master, and the other one is the servant. In other words, we could call them the slaves. So you do what the boss wants, and you get what the boss pays. You don't have any rights to ask for more. You don't have any rights to ask anything that you want in your own favor. They take everything from you, whatever they want, and they give whatever they like to. That was the context earlier. Now this is a different story. uh, Employees have loads of rights in here. Most of us, we don't know the reason why sometimes we lose loads of our rights. We lose loads of our values to our employers because they are powerful anyway. Uh, in fear of losing a job, you listen to what they say, you don't need to. So here there is no servant boss, servant master relationship. We have a relationship. It is a contractual, mutual understanding, contractual relationship, meaning I'm a lecturer, I teach your students. Okay, that's my job. Your job is to pay me the price of my service. That's it. I'm not your slave. You're not my boss. You can't control me. I don't want to control you either. What is my job? This is the contract. This is what it is. I do this, and you pay me this. If you can pay me this, I'm here. If not, I'm not there. Okay, that's a relationship. So you have more rights here, right? Okay, now let's see the first law, Employment Rights Act 1996, that provides the basic protection for employees, workers. Okay, uh, this law has given rights to the employees. The main right is this: employers, they cannot do any deductions in your salary, from your salary, illegally. That is illegal. If they cut any salary without the right authorization, that is illegal. Okay, under this right. So if any employer make any deduction from your salary, uh, you have the right to take them to the employment tribunal to get your claims, to get your money. Okay, and that money is not the money they cut. You can charge them more. For example, if they cut $100, you don't go to the tribunal to get that $100 back. What happens is you go to the tribunal, you can claim a lot more than that because of the $100 cut, your suffering was serious. Maybe you delayed the payment of your hospitals because of that you fall sick. And what's the price for that? You can claim that as well. Okay, so that's the idea. The next thing is about the guaranteed payment. Sometimes, some months, your business may be quiet. So you don't have any business, so your employees are relaxing. There's no job to do. If you take a university, when you complete, let's say, tomorrow I'm completing this subject. After this, I have no lectures for you for another couple of months. Next subject is going to be finance. So some other lecturer will do it. I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to have off. All right, so I don't have anything to do, but the university has to pay me. They cannot say you don't have any lectures, no payment this month. No, your payment is guaranteed. If they don't pay, you have the right to take them to the courts. Okay, right. And specific requirement for Sunday working. Sundays are usually off for everyone. But if you work on Sunday, if you want to work on Sunday, you have special arrangements, maybe some premium pay or some other extra stuff that you agree with. The same right, same Employment Rights Act provide the duty to the employer to give you the statement of employment. Statement of employment. What is that? Let me explain that to you. So statement of employment should be given to your employees within the first 2 months of your work. If you join the company today, you don't need to give it to them today, but definitely you have to give it to them within the next 2 months. Otherwise, they have the right to take it from you. So what is this statement? Now, let me explain one more point before I explain what this statement is about. Uh, if you enter into a contract to buy things, to sell things, you don't need to write it. You don't need to have a written contract. It is not a legal requirement, right? Unless certain things. There are four things, four contracts, four types of contracts that you have to definitely write. If you do a contract to buy or sell properties, you have to write it and you have to register that in the land registry. That's a requirement. You have to write it. But if you buy a piece of cloth, if you buy a burger, you don't need to write and sign it. It's difficult, practically impossible. You have to sit down and write a contract and sign both of us. I'm paying £25 here for my burger meal. No, it's impossible. So the eye of law, you don't need to write the contract, all the contracts that you enter into. No, property deals, yes. Insurance deals, yes. Certain things. Right. The context of employment contract, if you enter into an employment contract to work for an organization, that contract you don't need to write it either. The law doesn't expect you to write it, but you always demand a contract, because if you want to go for some bank related facilities, or if you want to enter into some other company to work for, this contract is an evidence for you to show the bank, to the other employees, to find a good job and so on. So always demand for it. But however, companies are not compelled legally to give you a contract. But under this law, Employment Rights Act 1996, though you don't need to give a contract, you have to give a statement of employment. That is important. Okay. And that should include these things: the name of your employer and the employee, the date of employment started, okay, your job title, summary of your duty, the basics are there. So you can read all of those: holiday entitlement, hours of work, location of work, those kind of things. The basic information about your employment contract should be given in a statement of employment. That is a must. Within 2 months, they should be giving it to you. Otherwise, you have the right to take it. Okay. All right. The next part of it is entitles the paid holiday leave. Paid holiday leave. You have to get some paid holidays. If you work for a year, you earn some holidays that is entitled to you next year, and so on. So there are things. Okay. And your maternity leave, paternity leave, of course, yes. Maternity leave is about the females when they deliver babies. They're entitled to go for maternity leave. Paternity leave means single parents, if they want to have uh, some leave to look after their kids and so on. Yes, right. And the same rights act give you the right for your dismissal. We have different types of dismissal. We have uh, wrongful dismissal. We have uh, summary dismissal. We have different types of dismissal. Now, these dismissals are subject to legal action if they do it wrongfully, if they do summary dismissals, and so on. So, and again, redundancy. If they redundancy is about this, you join a company to do some work. If the company doesn't have the work they have and they have recruited you, the company can say, we don't do this job anymore, so we don't have any jobs to you. That's fine. Let's say you join a hotel restaurant to cook some rice. So you cook rice, business is going on. After some times, the hotel decided not to cook rice anymore. So they started cooking pizza. Okay, when they start cooking pizza, uh, hang on. When they start cooking pizza, they ask you to cook pizza. You say, no, I don't know how to cook pizza. I can only cook rice. So they may tell you, we don't have any job here to cook rice because we don't sell any rice anymore. So they don't have the job that you wanted, so that they can make you redundant. They can say, we don't have job for you, so you become redundant. Now, they cannot simply say, we don't rise from tomorrow onwards, no job for you. No, there's a procedure, there is a process, there is a legal requirement to follow so that you get redundant and you get some redundancy payments as well. You are allowed to, you are entitled to. Okay. So these are all rights that Employment Rights Act 1996 provides. Okay. Right. So it's a big act anyway. I'm not going to discuss everything. Now let's go to the next one. If you need any personal circumstances related requirement, please let me know. I'll be able to give you some idea about it. Right. Now the next one is about the Employment Relations Act. Here we talk about the trade union recognition. This act in Act 2024 recognized the trade unions activities. Okay, but there's a condition. The size of your company, depending on the size of your company, you can enter into. Okay, and unfair dismissals of strikers. If you strike, if you enter into strike against the companies with some demands, they sometimes dismiss you. That is what we call unfair dismissal, and that is not that is becoming legal or otherwise, you have some right to go against it. Okay. Maternity leave and the paternity leave is given here as well. Time off for dependents. In this act, we especially have some right for people if they have some dependents. Now, earlier we talked about the parents, your kids, fine, but now dependents also having some rights in here. If you have a dependent, they may not be your kids, right? But if they are dependent of you, you have some right to take some time off to look after them, to do some caring arrangements for them. Okay, so that is coming under this. Now, Equal Pay Act, this is about the payment. If you employ people, you should not discriminate any employee in terms of their payment in connection with the age, the sex, the race, the gender, those kind of things. No, you can only discriminate payment based on the job description, the amount of work they do. Yes, otherwise no. You cannot say you are a female, you are underaged, you are younger. No, there's no such things. If they do it, if you do the same job as of the other, you are entitled to get the same payment. Okay, and that is about the Equal Pay Act. Data Protection Act is again this. Employers, they collect data from their employees for many reasons, and they collect many informations from you. They collect personal informations, your name, your date of birth, your account number, your national insurance number, NI, your address, your email ID, your phone number. They collect so many things, and they may collect some sensitive information as well. Sensitive means your sexual orientation, your disability, your personal diseases. Those are your medical records. Those are all sensitive information. They may collect that as well for some reason. Now, under Data Protection Act, employees are allowed to collect data. Okay, and this protection, this data is protected. You cannot use this data as you like. You can use it, or you have to use it within the limits of this law. Let me discuss some limits of this. You have to fairly and lawfully process it and proceed with those. If you collect it, you should not collect more than what you really want. Okay, you may need certain things. You should not collect more than what you want. When you collect it, you should not use it more than what it was collected for. Let's say you collect that bank account to make the payment. Okay, you cannot use that bank account details for any other purposes. You may collect their phone numbers to make some phone calls to your employees. You cannot use that phone number to do anything more than that the purpose of collection. You may collect the email IDs to send them emails later to the workplace matters. You cannot use that email ID to send them some marketing related information to them. So you collect the data, you use it for the purpose you collect that for. You cannot use that for more than what it was collected. And when you collect this data, you cannot pass this on to a third party without the consent of these data owners. You cannot keep the data that you collected more than the duration of time that you wanted it for in your database. You collect the employee's data, and your employer has resigned, and after some times of for 1 or 2, 3 years, you may need those data in your database. After that, you have to destroy it. You should not keep it. And whatever you have to have a data collection policy, data protection policy in your organization, and you should not give access to anyone else other than the authorized personnel in your organization. And any offense happens, anything that goes against this law, you are subject to legal action, and the body, the authority, otherwise the law enforcement authority, is Information Commissioner's Office. They are the people, they take action against you. Okay, and this is a very big law, and that was amended, meaning improved recently as well. Right, the original law is coming from 1998, and after that, that was uh, altered after almost 20 years, I think 2020. You can have a look at it. Right. National Minimum Wages Act, we have already looked at. Race Relations Act, here, the race. Okay. uh, you cannot discriminate any of your employees on the ground of race, color, nationality, citizenship, ethnic origin. Your employees are your employees, and you have to treat everyone equally on the same ground. And if you see any discrimination, that is an offense. You can take the company to the tribunal to take your claims. Sex Discrimination Act. Here we talk about the female, male, and other different sex orientations, lesbianism, gayism, uh, and so on. Right. The Disability Discrimination Act 2005 that gives the protection for people, those who have some disability. You cannot treat your employees unfairly because they are disabled, underpay or less pay, or if you discriminate them for a training. For example, if your company has some training option for your employees, you give that to everyone, you deny that access to someone who is disabled. That's again a discrimination. So that is regulated here. And the religion, right here, because of the religion, you may be having different faith. That's your right. You can follow any religion you wanted to, and you cannot have any discrimination because of your different religion or different faith. Right. Now, this is about sexual orientation, especially there is a law that was passed in 2003. This is to protect the same-sex, lesbianism, and gays. Special uh, regulation that was passed in the parliament in 2003 to protect these people. All right. Age discrimination. Again, the law up to the law. This law talks about the minimum age to start a job, the maximum age to work, the retirement age, those kind of things are here. And this is again another law that was passed into the 2006. Okay, all right, that's it. And we have more laws as well. And I have given the very brief look at these laws. So if you need any details, please download the law. It is available. Have a look at it. And if you have any specific recommend for your personal legal context, please let me know. I'll be able to give you some idea on it. So otherwise, I can introduce a law in where you live. Right now, the next part is about the policies. Right. So we talked about laws and we are talking about policies, human resource policies. What are they? The company you work for, they may have policies, drug policy, alcohol policy, smoking policy, harassment policy. Okay, data protection policy, discipline, dismissal, grievances policy. Okay. What else? Yeah, there are different things. Right. Now let's have a look at what policy is about. Now, the law covers the main part of this contract of employee employer, in fact, right? So they cover. The policy is a little bit different to this one. The law, the legislation of the country is common for every company. Okay, minimum wages. This is the minimum salary you could pay for an employee if they work for an hour. That is the price. And that's the price every single company has to pay minimum. If they want to pay more than that, it's not a problem. Every company has to give 6 weeks of maternity leave for the first baby, or 12 weeks of, in fact, 13 weeks, I think. 13 weeks of, I'm not updated, please refer it. Let's say 13 weeks of maternity leave for the first baby. So every company, if a pregnant mother delivered the baby, you have to give them 13 weeks. You don't have any excuse. If you reduce it or if you deny it, you will get the legal charges. That is subject. That is every company is subject to this. Fine. All right, 90 days, Jackson. Thank you very much for your updates. I don't know which country you're talking about. Anyway, fine. It differs country to country. Right now, so that is a law. That is the legislation. Now, what is policy? Policy is about to fill the gap in the law that is GCC in Middle East countries. All right, okay. Right. So the 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 policy is about to fill the gap of this law. For example, there is no law that says you cannot employ any drug addicts, any alcoholic person, drunkards, or person who drinks, any smokers. There's no law because law cannot say if you're a smoker you can't get a job. Law cannot say if you, the companies that don't recruit any smokers, they can't do it because that is not going to work. Okay, right. But companies may make their own policy inside the organization that will help them to regulate the internal environment. So I can make a smoking policy in my university. No lecturer, no students, no one can smoke inside the lectures or lecture hall premises. That's my law. Okay, that's my policy. There is no law, but my policy is this: I don't let anyone. If you smoke, you are subject to legal action. In fact, the disciplinary action. Okay, in the smoking policy, I would say you can't smoke. If you smoke, these are the consequences of it. I would say I give you first warning, second warning, third warning, I sack you. Okay, that's my policy. Drug policy, alcohol policy, harassment policy. If you harass someone, we may have a policy. There is no harassment related laws in the country in terms of your employment law. But if somebody harasses someone, it is an offense. It's a criminal offense. You can take them to the police and you can take the criminal charges against the person who harassed you. That's fine. But there is no legal employment related law that regulates harassments in workplace. Right. So this is the policy. So what is policy then? You make some laws for your own policy to fill the gap that you have in the legislation. That is the number one type of policy. Number two type of policy is this: when you have the law sets the legal minimum. What is the meaning of legal minimum? The salary for an employee for an hour is £11 21 pence. That is the minimum wages. Okay, right. This is a legal minimum. You cannot pay less than this. But your policy may say, for any of my employees, my minimum salary or wages an hour is 15 sterlings. That is my policy. All right. So what's the second type? You make your own law, own policy better than the legal minimum set by the law. That is the second type. What's the first type then? When you have no laws to regulate certain things, drug, alcohol, those kind of things, there is no law. Okay, so no law. So you make your own policy to make your workplace a better workplace so that employees can work for you. They may choose to work for you because you are a safer place, right? So you make your own policies for your organization because there are no laws to regulate you. That is one type of policy. The second type is you make a better policy than the legal minimum, better than the legal minimum to make your workplace attractive to your employees. Let's say if you have a better workplace uh, where you have a powerful harassment policy, people won't mind sending their females to work at your workplace because your harassment policy is very severe, right? So there is no law that regulates harassment in workplace, but you make your policy, right? So two types. Number one, fill the gap. Number two, to get better than the legal minimum. You do these two. The reason is this: if you have better policy in any area of your HR practices, you become more attractive to attract people to work for you than your competitors, right? You may be a software company, and there are another software company in the market there is, and they are looking for the same set of employees. But if your employment policy is better, they may choose you over the others. That's the reason why you develop policies and you communicate that policies to your potential employees when you advertise jobs. Okay, right. Now, I have a question here. So I have a point to discuss here. What is the connection of legislation or the law of the country and the policy, right? The legislation is applied, it's applicable to every company, and every company has to follow that. If you don't follow it, if you're not in compliance with it, you are subject to the election. Finished. And every company has to follow it. But if you want to be better than the other companies, you have to go a step ahead to have better laws, greater laws above the legal minimum of your own, so that you become attractive to your employees. So your policy is the law is setting the legal minimum, policy is going beyond the legal minimum. That is one thing. If that area is regulated, if it is not regulated, you can still have some policies on that to become better than the other employers. Okay, and that's the idea of it. Right, I think that is it, and I have some idea. HR policies, you can make HR policies related to this area: recruitment and selection, yes. Health and safety policy, okay. Equality and diversity policy, that is regulated, but health and safety is regulated. Pay, reward, benefit is regulated. Training and development is not regulated. Maternity patent is regulated. Whistleblowing is not regulated. Performance improvement is not regulated. So you can make policies on regulated areas and non-regulated areas as well. If it is done in regulated areas, you have to look into the legal minimum. If you're doing it in unregulated areas, you don't need to worry about it. You just make it, okay? But you have to be attractive to your employees. Okay, yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. We have covered 2 areas today, and I'll be covering the rest of it in the next class. Have a great evening. Thank you very much.